Hi, okay, this will be part 3 of making a simple game using HTML5 canvas with JavaScript. This episode we will look at detecting collisions. This will possibly be more of a general look at some ways of detecting collisions and not all that specific to HTML5 and JavaScript. I will use the script from an earlier episode as a base and show how we can use the collision detecting in the script. If you have not seen the 2 first episodes, you might want to do that first and get the script from the earlier episode. Links in the description below. In the description there will also be a link to the script after the changes we will do in this episode. The first thing we will look at is detecting a single point within a rectangle. So we make a function to check if a single point is inside a rectangle. Let's call the function inArea. As parameters we need the x and y value of the point. We will also need x and y value of the top left corner and the values of the bottom right corner of the rectangle. So, if the x value of the point is between the x values of the 2 corners of the rectangle, and the y value of the point is between the y values of the corners, the point is inside the area, and we have the function return true. If not, the point is outside the rectangle, and we have the function return false. So we need a variable to hold the result of the running of the function. We call it color and set it to 0 as a starting value. We then go to the render part of the code and set the background color to different values if the variable color is 0 or 1. Finally, we go to the update part of the script. We add some code to check if the mouse pointer is inside a rectangle with the top left corner at 5 and 5 and the bottom right corner at 100 and 100. In a previous episode we have set up an event listener that checks for the position of the mouse pointer and store that in the variables mpx and mpy. So we can use that in this code. If the mouse pointer is in the area we have defined, we set the variable color to 1 and otherwise to 0. So when we run the program, we can see that we can change the background color by moving the mouse cursor in and out of the area we have defined. So far, so good. Okay, let's try it with an area formed as a circle. Let's call the function inCirc. We need the x and y values of the point we want to check and the x and y values of the center point of the circle. We also need a distance, and that is the radius of the circle, the distance between the center point of the circle and the edge of the circle. So, in the function we get the distance between the x values and the y values of the center point and the point we want to check. We want a positive value, not a negative. We use maths to get that. We then use Pythagoras to calculate the distance between the 2 points. If the radius is longer than the distance between the 2 points we are comparing, the point is inside the circle. So let's change the code under Update to check if the mouse pointer is inside a circle. We set the center of the circle to 100 and 100 and the radius to 90. So let's check how this runs. And we can see that this too works. A fun thing with the insert function is that we can use it also to check if two circle-formed areas is colliding. All we have to do is to set the parameter d to the combined value of the radius for each of the circles. This is probably the simplest form to check for collision between two areas. It can be useful if we wanted to check on the collision between two roughly circular objects. The limitation is that both areas must be circles, or roughly circles. Another way to check for collisions is to check for collisions between two rectangles, sometimes called bounding boxes or hitboxes. This is similar to the function for checking for a point inside a rectangle. Here it is, however, easier to check for if a rectangle is not colliding with the other rectangle. If the bottom side of rectangle A is above the top side of the rectangle B, the rectangles cannot collide. If the top side of rectangle A is below the bottom side of rectangle B, the rectangles cannot collide. If the right side of rectangle A is to the left of the left side of rectangle B, the rectangles cannot collide. If the left side of rectangle A is to the right of the right side of rectangle B, the rectangles cannot collide. If all four of these tests fail, then the two rectangles are colliding. So, let's put this to the test. For this, we will create two different rectangles with different colors, one with a fixed position and one that will have its top left corner at the position of the mouse cursor. When the mouse moves, the rectangle also moves. Under Update, we change our code for checking collisions to check for collisions between the two rectangles. And once again, we have success. So there we have some basics for detecting collisions. In a later video we will look into loading images from an image file into our game, and even later we will look at using collisions with game characters and objects. But for now, this will be all. I hope to see you later. Bye.